3 men deeply involved in tornado research.
3 veteran storm chasers now among the dead. Tim Samaras, his son Paul, and their colleague Carl Young.
The heartbreaking tragedy of Tim Samaras from storm chasers shocked the scientific community, despite his extraordinary achievements in the field. During his career, Samaras captured the largest drop in atmospheric pressure ever recorded, 100 HPA in less than 1 minute, when an F4 tornado struck near Manchester, South Dakota, on June 24, 2003. Unfortunately, while pursuing his passion for understanding severe weather phenomena, Samaras, his son Paul, and colleague Carl Young lost their lives documenting a massive tornado in Reno, Oklahoma. What makes this tragedy particularly significant? In this video, we'll uncover it all. Come along, Body. The heartbreaking tragedy of Tim Samaras. It was on May 31, 2013, that the storm-chasing world, one often marked by adrenaline, science, and an unspoken brotherhood, was brought to its knees. No one saw it coming, not like this. That day, the massive and unpredictable El Reno tornado struck not just the plains of Oklahoma, but the very heart of a close-knit community. Among its victims were 3 of the most respected and beloved figures in storm chasing: Tim Samaras, his 24-year-old son Paul, and their colleague Carl Young. For the first time ever, the storm-chasing community had lost its own to the very force they had devoted their lives to studying. And the irony? They weren't reckless thrill-seekers or daredevils hungry for viral footage. Tim Samaras, by all accounts, was the gold standard of caution, a man known not for taking chances, but for calculating them with near-surgical precision. So how could this have happened? To him, of all people. He spent his life saving others from tornadoes, but when the biggest storm of all came, no one could save him. What went wrong that day? And why does his story still haunt storm chasers to this day? Stay with us. The details of their final moments still send chills down the spine of anyone who hears them. Tim was found still strapped into his seatbelt, his body crushed inside what remained of their vehicle, completely flattened by the tornado's violent winds. Paul and Carl weren't as lucky. Their bodies were thrown nearly half a mile away, torn from the car by a force so powerful it defied logic. An Oklahoma Highway Patrol trooper, Betsy Randolph, had to deliver the heart-wrenching account over the patrol radio. Her voice cracked as she shared that they had been heard screaming, "We're going to die! We're going to die!" Just let that sink in for a moment. 3 men who spent their lives understanding tornadoes. 3 people trained to stay just on the right side of danger. Trapped in a situation where there was nowhere left to run. No shelter, no options. Only nature in its rawest, cruelest form. The aftermath was more than just grief. It was a kind of disbelief that settled deep into the bones of every meteorologist and storm chaser. This was supposed to be impossible. Not for Tim, not for his team. Storm chaser Skip Talbot put it bluntly. This was the day that storm chasing lost its innocence. Before that day, there was a sense, maybe even a myth, that the true professionals, the careful ones, could outsmart the storm. But after El Reno, that illusion was shattered. The community found itself asking a terrifying question. If someone like Tim Samaras could die in a storm, then who among us is truly safe? William Gallus, a meteorologist who had followed Tim's work closely, expressed what so many others were feeling. Everybody would have said Samaras was the safest person out there. It wasn't just a loss, it was a paradigm shift. To understand the weight of this loss, consider this. For 28 years, since 1985, not a single meteorologist had been killed while chasing a tornado. That's nearly 3 decades of dangerous work, and yet not one fatality. Storm chaser Mike Thies summed up the heartbreak in a single sentence. The chaser community knew it was a matter of time before a fellow chaser died chasing a tornado. But Tim Samaras was not on my list of people I thought this would happen to. That's the thing. Everyone knew it could happen, but no one believed it would happen to someone so experienced, so prepared, so deeply respected. The public response was overwhelming. Media outlets around the world covered the tragedy, but it was National Geographic, an organization that had funded much of Tim's research, that truly captured the emotion of the moment. In November 2013, they dedicated their cover to him, showcasing a hauntingly beautiful image that reflected not just his passion for storms, but the quiet intensity with which he approached his work. Creative director Bill Maher explained, "Our story is both about the amazing life of Tim Samaras and the details of his last day. And in that issue, readers didn't just see a scientist, they saw a father, a mentor, a dreamer who paid the ultimate price in pursuit of knowledge. And what about the family he left behind? In the face of unimaginable grief, they chose to honor what he loved. They said they took comfort knowing that Tim, Paul, and Carl died together, doing what they loved most. His brother Jim, through the pain, found the words to bring some meaning to the loss. He said, 'If I had to have a way for my brother to die, it would be doing what he did, chasing tornadoes.' It was his passion. And isn't that what we all hope for in the end? To live a life filled with purpose, and to be remembered not just for what we did, but for how deeply we cared about it? What drove Tim Samaras to chase deadly storms? From the very moment little Tim Samaras sat beside his mother and watched The Wizard of Oz, something changed inside him. He was just 6 years old, wide-eyed and full of wonder, when the tornado scene swept across the screen. And it didn't just entertain him, it grabbed him. When the tornado appeared, he later said, "I was hooked." It's wild to think that such a simple, shared moment, a child watching a film with his mom, could plant the seed for a lifelong journey into one of the most dangerous and unpredictable forces of nature. But that's exactly what it did. That one scene sparked a curiosity that would one day drive Tim to the front lines of storms, not as an adrenaline junkie looking for a thrill, but as a dedicated researcher determined to uncover the secrets swirling at the heart of tornadoes. And one might ask, what makes someone chase something so deadly again and again? For Tim, the answer was never about the thrill. It was about understanding. It was about science. It was about helping. Unlike many who chased storms just to feel the rush or capture viral footage, Samaras stood out for his methodical, deeply scientific approach. Even without a formal meteorology degree or a traditional academic background, he built his knowledge from the ground up. In his 20s, he wasn't out there for the cool points or to scare himself silly. No, he was in it to study, to build, to learn. He would later explain that he chased storms not for the thrill, but the science, which tells you everything you need to know about the kind of person he was. Isn't it amazing when someone's passion and purpose align so clearly? Tim was the kind of person who could teach himself how to read complex weather systems while simultaneously designing some of the most advanced storm-chasing equipment the world had ever seen. That's no exaggeration. Before Tim came onto the scene, there was a gaping hole in tornado research. Scientists had virtually no data from the ground level inside a tornado. Imagine trying to solve a puzzle while missing the most important pieces. That's what researchers were up against, until Tim decided to change that. Thanks to his background at the Denver Research Institute, where he worked on testing explosive weapon systems, he had the kind of hands-on engineering experience that proved invaluable when he turned his focus to tornadoes. Using what he knew, and teaching himself the rest, Tim created groundbreaking tools like the turtle probes, low to the ground, heavy-duty instruments designed to sit in the path of a tornado and survive the chaos. It might sound crazy, but those probes helped collect data that was impossible to get any other way. Think about that for a second. Scientists were literally flying blind when it came to the lowest 10 meters of a tornado, the very area where homes are destroyed, cars are tossed, and lives are lost. That's the zone Tim wanted to understand, not for fame or glory, but to make real progress in how we prepare for and respond to tornadoes. Can you imagine how many lives that kind of data could help save? He wasn't just a scientist. He was also, in many ways, a poet of the storm. "I'm not sure exactly why I chase storms," he once said. "Perhaps it's to witness the incredible beauty of what Mother Nature can create. That's the thing about Tim. While he approached his work with meticulous care and precision, he never lost his sense of wonder. He talked about seeing tornadoes with his eyes wide open, about how you don't just see the tornado, you hear it, you feel it, and yes, even smell it. That kind of sensory experience can't be faked or captured in a lab. And yet, despite that deep awe, Tim never let himself get careless. In fact, those who worked with him considered him one of the most careful storm chasers in the entire field. He wasn't out there taking reckless risks. He was calculated, strategic, safe. Meteorologist Greg Forbes once described him as a groundbreaker in terms of the kind of research he was doing on severe thunderstorms and tornadoes. And it's not hard to see why. Year after year, Tim would drive more than 35,000 miles during peak tornado seasons, all in the name of science. That's not just dedication, that's obsession, and he wasn't shy about admitting it. Some call it a hobby, some call it an addiction. He once said, "I think it's more of an obsession with me." And yet, even with that obsession, Tim never lost sight of what mattered most: safety. He often talked about being focused on our safety, certainly, and focused on getting the data and getting in the right spot. He knew that tornadoes were unforgiving, and that you only get one shot at being in the right place at the right time. Never be too sure you've seen the worst the storm can deliver, he once warned. The sky can always show you something you haven't seen yet. That line hits different now, doesn't it? Because at the end of the day, Tim Samaras wasn't just chasing storms, he was chasing understanding. He wanted to know what made tornadoes tick so that others might be better prepared. He believed that the answers were out there, spinning in the wind. And if he could just get close enough, just place the instruments in the right spot, maybe he could help unlock those answers. And that's why he kept going again and again, over 125 tornadoes, tracked and studied. Thousands of miles driven, countless data points gathered, and through it all, a simple guiding belief that science, when done with heart and purpose, could make the world a safer place. Was it dangerous? Of course. But for Tim Samaras, the greater danger was not knowing. Still, even with all his experience, all his brilliance, and all his caution, there was one tornado that blindsided even him. A tornado that changed everything we thought we knew. So don't go anywhere, because what happened with the Reno tornado wasn't just unexpected. It was history being rewritten in real time. How did the Reno tornado defy expectations? When people talk about tornadoes, there's often this idea that they're somewhat predictable. You see one form, you track its path, and if you're trained enough or cautious enough, you can move around it safely. But the Reno tornado of May 31st, 2013 shattered that belief into 1,000 pieces, leaving even the most experienced storm chasers completely blindsided. It wasn't just another violent storm. It was the kind of tornado that rewrote the rule book in real time, challenging everything experts thought they knew. One might wonder, how could something that scientists study so closely become this wildly unpredictable? Well, that's exactly what happened on that fateful day in Oklahoma. The tornado didn't just move, it changed directions in ways that made even the best chasers lose their bearings. It started out heading southeast, which was expected, but then it took a sudden and sharp turn north, executed a bizarre loop, and then veered east again. That alone would be confusing enough, but paired with its frightening speed changes and shocking growth in size, it created a deadly situation for anyone even remotely close. Meteorologists and storm chasers weren't prepared for what came next. In less than a minute, just around 30 seconds, the tornado expanded from 1 mile wide to an astounding 2.6 miles wide, making it the widest tornado ever recorded. That's the kind of change that leaves no room for reaction. And while some tornadoes lumber along at a steady pace, this one did the opposite. It went from a relatively manageable 20 miles per hour to a jaw-dropping 55 miles per hour, forcing chasers and bystanders alike to scramble with little warning. And just when people thought they understood its scale, it widened again, eventually reaching a terrifying 4.2 kilometers in width near Highway 81. Think about that, over 2.5 miles wide of swirling destruction. And to make matters worse, two smaller tornadoes, or satellite tornadoes, formed on the western side of the main funnel, making an already confusing situation even more chaotic. Is it any surprise that this storm caught so many off guard? But here's what made this tornado even more deceptive. It looked like it was safer than it actually was. That sounds strange, right? But that's exactly what happened. There were these rain bands that didn't just surround the tornado, they were part of its outer circulation. So to the untrained eye, or even to a trained one under pressure, it might have seemed like the tornado was far away or safely contained. In reality, those bands were moving with the storm itself, hiding the true edges of the danger zone. This meant that some chasers who thought they were positioned safely outside the tornado's reach were, in fact, right in the middle of it. They had parked themselves in what's known in storm chasing circles as the bear's cage, typically a good viewing spot near the tornado's edge where visibility is clear and risks are calculated. But with El Reno, that strategy backfired. The tornado's unexpected movements sent it hurtling straight toward them, and many didn't have time to get out. The radar data collected during and after the storm only confirmed what people had experienced on the ground. This was no ordinary tornado. Mobile Doppler radar picked up wind speeds near the ground reaching a staggering 296 miles per hour. That's nearly as fast as some of the strongest hurricanes ever recorded. And inside the main tornado, things were even more complicated. The radar showed multiple smaller vortices spinning around the core, each one capable of massive destruction. One of these internal vortices was especially powerful, with radar readings suggesting winds close to 200 miles per hour. It moved erratically, sometimes sitting still, other times racing at speeds over 100 miles per hour. And tragically, it was this hidden danger that proved fatal for several storm chasers who entered what they thought was a clear zone, only to find themselves trapped in a churning mess of wind, debris, and flying metal. Survivors' stories give us an even more vivid picture of what it felt like to be caught inside this monster of a storm. One person remembered how they could tell they were inside the tornado because everything in front of them was spinning in a perfect circle. Another recounted how the hail began pounding their vehicle. The windows started cracking, and the very last thing they said before everything went black was, "Close your eyes," right before all the windows exploded and their car began to roll. These weren't isolated experiences. Even veteran storm chasers like Skip Talbot were almost caught in the chaos. He later recalled how his partner Jennifer pointed out something terrifying. She noticed that the rain in front of them wasn't just falling, it was moving, fast, just like a tornado would. And it wasn't just a little patch, it was rain moving in tornadic fashion over several miles. That's when it hit them. They were much deeper into the tornado than they realized. They weren't just near it, they were inside it. So, what does the El Reno tornado teach us? It shows that nature still holds the upper hand. No matter how far technology has come, no matter how many radar scans we have or how many weather models we run, sometimes the atmosphere just decides to throw something completely unpredictable at us. It reminds us of the fine line between bravery and danger, especially for those who chase storms not for thrill, but for science. It also shows that even the best can be caught off guard when a storm behaves in a way that no one has ever seen before. The El Reno tornado wasn't just big, fast, or violent, it was unpredictable. And that unpredictability made it one of the most dangerous and tragic tornadoes in recorded history. Why was Samaras considered the safest chaser? Among storm chasers, there was something different about Tim Samaras. Something deeply grounded, careful, and quietly noble. While others raced toward tornadoes with a mix of thrill and boldness, Samaras stood out for how methodical and safety-conscious he was. In a field where risk was often worn like a badge of honor, he carried his caution like armor. He wasn't careless. He wasn't impulsive. If anything, he was the kind of man who made others pause and think, Is chasing a storm worth your life if you haven't planned for every possible outcome? That's what made his death such a blow. Not just heartbreaking, but baffling. How could someone who was so famously careful, so deeply invested in preparation and survival, be taken by the very danger he had always respected from a distance? People who worked with Samaras would often say the same thing. He never chased without a plan. Before each mission, he would spend hours poring over weather data, decoding patterns, tracking storm behavior, and mapping out not just where to go, but how to get out. He'd sketch out escape routes like someone planning a heist, down to the last turnoff or gravel road. He'd even decide on rendezvous points, in case he and his team got separated. Who does that, really? Most chasers would rather just wing it and hope their jeeps holds up, but not Tim. If a road looked like it could turn into a muddy trap during rainfall, he'd avoid it entirely. No data was worth a stuck truck. Or worse, if things looked even slightly dicey, he'd pull out of a chase, no matter how promising the tornado looked or how valuable the data could have been. His colleague, William Gallus, once said that Samaras would give up the chase in a heartbeat if he thought it might put anyone in harm's way. Imagine being that committed to safety that you'd walk away from the very thing that fuels your life's work. That's not fear, that's wisdom. He wasn't just smart about planning. He was also a genius at engineering. Most people don't realize that Samaras built his own equipment, like his famous turtle probes, which were designed to sit low and flat against the ground so tornado winds couldn't rip them away. These things weren't just slapped together in a garage. They were aerodynamic, strong, and reliable. They could take direct hits from twisters and live to tell the tale through the data they collected. And when it came to vehicles, Tim didn't settle for anything less than solid. He used a 3/4-ton truck with extra lining and modifications for added protection. That wasn't about looking cool on camera. It was about giving himself and his team the best shot at walking away if something went wrong. But his concern wasn't just about himself. He cared deeply about the people around him. Ask anyone who worked with him, and they'll tell you, Tim made sure his crew was fed, rested, and safe. He didn't treat them like just another part of the job. He made sure they had proper meals, found decent places to stay, and followed protocols to the letter. Every member of his team knew the drill: where to park, how to communicate, what to do if they had to bail out fast. It wasn't chaos, it was choreography. That level of discipline is rare in any field, let alone one where adrenaline often overpowers judgment. People who knew him, really knew him, always pointed to that professionalism. CNN's Chad Myers said flat out, "There's just no one safer than Tim. He would never put himself in danger. He certainly wouldn't put his son in danger." That says a lot, doesn't it? His son Paul often chased with him. And for a man like Tim, nothing, absolutely nothing, was more important than keeping his boy safe. Storm chaser Doug Kiesling echoed the same thing, recalling that while Samaras had had a few close calls, he always had a way out. Always. And Ben McMillan, who worked with Samaras on the show Storm Chasers, reminded everyone that what we see on TV isn't real life. Chasing isn't all spinning funnels and dramatic music. It's spreadsheets, maps, forecasts, and a whole lot of patience. And Tim embodied that to the core. Even those in the academic world, where storm chasing is more often backed by grants and institutions, respected Samaras as a standout. Meteorologist Howard Bluestein once pointed out that although Tim wasn't tied to a university or a major research lab, he still managed to make a name for himself through serious and valuable work. His measurements, his data, his equipment, they were all first class, and so was he. Time and time again, his colleagues described him in the same way, one of the most careful chasers in the business. It means calculated risks. It means putting safety above ego. It means making sure that the story you're chasing doesn't become your last. But here's the thing, legacies like Tim's don't just fade when the storms pass. They ripple outward into science, into safety protocols, into the hearts of those he inspired. So what does that legacy look like now? Who's carrying that torch? And how is his spirit still shaping the skies? Stick around till the very end, because the way Tim's legacy continues today might just surprise you, and it's far more powerful than any storm he ever faced. How does Samaras's legacy live on today? Years after the tragic loss of Tim Samaras in the devastating El Reno tornado, his impact on the world of tornado science is still very much alive, and some would argue it's more influential now than ever. People in the meteorological world still talk about him with a kind of quiet reverence, not just because of how he died, but because of how passionately he lived for the science he loved. It's almost impossible to have a serious conversation about tornado research without his name coming up. So what exactly made his work so valuable that even now, long after he's gone, it continues to shape the field? Well, it all starts with the data. Tim didn't just chase storms for the thrill of it. He engineered his own probes to get inside tornadoes and capture the kind of real-time measurements that, until he came along, had only lived in the realm of scientific imagination. These weren't just fancy gadgets either. They recorded crucial details like sudden pressure drops, wild wind speeds, and extreme temperature swings, information that's vital to understanding how tornadoes behave. And here's the thing, this kind of data helps scientists make better forecasts and issue more accurate warnings. In other words, the work Tim did continues to save lives even today. But Tim's legacy isn't only written in numbers and instruments, it's also written in people. His calm, methodical, almost humble approach to storm chasing caught the attention of young scientists across the world. Many up-and-coming meteorologists and engineers say they chose their career paths because of him. Isn't it something when someone's passion sparks a whole wave of curiosity in others? Tim wasn't classically trained in a university lab. He taught himself so much of what he knew. And still, through sheer determination and brilliance, he managed to change the way people think about extreme weather. Today, several universities offer courses specifically focused on tornado research, and you'll often find Samaras's methods being taught in those very classrooms. Imagine that, students learning to deploy instruments and interpret storm data by following the footsteps of someone who started out building tools in his garage. Of course, after his death, the scientific community didn't just move on. They honored him the way real heroes are meant to be remembered. Memorial funds were set up, like the Tim Samaras Memorial Fund, which continues to support groundbreaking tornado research. Projects like TwistX, which was the very initiative Samaras led to deploy instruments in tornadoes, didn't end with him. Instead, they were renamed and reshaped into legacy programs that carry forward his work. Even the National Weather Service stepped back to take a hard look at how storm chasers operate, introducing stronger safety protocols influenced by the lessons learned from that heartbreaking day in El Reno. Across the country, among storm chaser circles and scientific communities, there's a sense of quiet pride in keeping his memory alive, not out of pity or tragedy, but out of deep respect for the purpose he lived for. When people talk about Tim Samaras today, it's not with tears, but with admiration and maybe a little awe. After all, how many people can say they got closer to the heart of a tornado than anyone else ever had, just so others could be safe? Isn't that the kind of legacy worth remembering forever? With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.